Hello, welcome back to these champion discussions, I suppose, is what we'll call them now. For now, the Monster Train discussion series is what I should call this. And I shall. Today we're talking about Tethys in episode 3 of my champion discussions. It's Tethys, everyone's best girl. She's great. And she is a she, in case you were wondering, part of the tidbit for your war video. Let's get into it, shall we? As outlined in the last one, I'm just going to talk about each one individually this time, and then we're going to talk about them as a whole. I love Tethys. I'll just get that out of the way. I think Tethys is my favorite champion. She's really fun. She feels great. Like, Tethys is a champion that feels really good to play with. Let's talk about why. Starting off here, we'll talk about Chillwind, Frostbite, Tethys. Tethys has one major flaw, as you'll see, which is her health never reaches the double digits. 9 is the highest you can see, but Frostbite Tethys is a 15-3 strike, apply Frostbite 10 to the attacked unit. So this is a lot. I don't necessarily feel like I need to get into the semantics here, but you get into 30 attack, 20 Frostbite, and 60 attack, 40 Frostbite. So this damage output is on par with Hornbreaker Prince, but the Frostbite is lingering damage, so it's actually better. However, your trade-off is 3 health. Tethys dies if anyone looks at her funny. In all of her forms, but especially Frostbite Tethys, where she stays at this 3 health point. However, every single Stygian run where your main unit, like where your Stygian main with Tethys, you're probably playing Protect Tethys. I think that the Frostbite Tethys is very strong. She'll kill bosses very quickly. Like 4 rounds probably is all. Like 3 rounds is actually all you need to give her, right? That's 45 damage plus 30, which is 75, and then they'll tick for 30 each floor. That's plenty. Tethys, and then at this level it's 90 damage with 60, right? Typically, if you can give Tethys 3 rounds against most bosses, most minor bosses, major bosses, Daedalus, Fel, Seraph, are different. You need more time, but you should be building towards that. Tethys in all forms needs a tank. Chillwind especially, you need a tank, and then you need to answer how are you keeping Tethys alive. But if you can answer that question, you'll win the game. Each clan has a different answer to how are we keeping Tethys alive, and Stygian has one as well. Let's talk about them. Armor from Hellhorn, you pick up armor for Tethys and she lives. However, you can't do branding, right? It's just got to be +5 typically. Awoken has, like, Awoken's probably the weakest. I think Stygian Awoken does struggle because you have a hard time keeping Tethys alive, but you have Steel Enhancer for +3 health and Cycle of Life, which is a rare. It just sucks that there's no good uncommon, I don't think, to keep Tethys alive, but regardless. Stygian has a good answer as well, which is Dazed/Sap. Either a Held Over Drain or a Held Over Frenzied Swarm will do great things for you. Held Over Frenzied Swarm means that Tethys never gets hit until Relentless, which is really strong, especially coupled with a good tank. You'll have a full health tank going into Seraph, as well as a Tethys that's alive, which is usually enough to just win. Umbra has Prismal Dust, which is damage shield, among other things. You can also just like try to feed Tethys morsels. It's kind of awkward. And then Melting has Stealth. You have to find one of your answers, though, for each Tethys on how you're keeping her alive. And if you can, you'll win, basically. And that's it. Frostbite Teth is good player, but be ready to keep her alive, and she'll win you games. She kills heavies. You need something to answer backlines, but as we'll talk about once we get into spell weakness, that can also be Tethys. Tethys can do it all with style. Although, I will say, let's talk about it right real quick, worth mentioning. 60 attack, 40 Frostbite, double heavies, 290 health enemies. You will need something else to handle those. Typically with Stygian, that answer is spell weakness, but Tethys won't solo double heavies for you ever, but she will kill a single heavy. You hit it for 60, it goes down to 130, plus it takes another 40, it goes down to 90, then it takes 39, then it takes 38, it goes up to your pyre. Even if it's just one hit from Tethys, it'll only hit you once, which is plenty strong enough in my opinion. Plus you give her some support, you give her some other units on the floor, she'll do great. Frostbite good, just make sure you keep her alive. Conduit Tethys, ugh. I think there's debate. I hear debate on which champion is the worst. I think it's Conduit Tethys. However, that's not to say it's that bad. I have never really done this. There's a few key cases where you're going to pick Conduit Tethys. A, Volatile Gauge. it just cancels out the negative on all of your spells, which is really good. You just get to play like 8 spells per turn. And B, you have an incant build. Basically, the big problem with Conduit Tethys is that it says damage spells. If this didn't say damage spells and it said all spells, it would be very strong. However, I'm sure they know that. And you'd basically just always splash one Conduit. But then again, maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. I never really make Conduit work in an average run. However, I have had runs where you're building incant, you have Siren of the Sea, and you're just scaling her like crazy. And you're just like playing 3 frozen lances a turn and then going, ah man, if only I had a little more energy to play these other lances. That's where Conduit Tethys comes in. You splash into Conduit Tethys, but you never start with this unless you picked Volatile Gauge from your starting relic, and then you can start with Conduit Tethys. But that's a bit of a gamble even, but you know. It's fine there, and it's fine with incant. Where you're, like, I've had a few situations, but it's rare because usually just applying Frostbite is better. However, if you're playing like Armor Shark plus Siren of the Sea and all you care about is I draw 7 cards, 8 cards, 9 cards per turn, I just need to play all these spells I draw, you can pick up Conduit and it's fine. But it's usually a pivot later on, not something you start with because it is a 10-5. But she does get up to 40 attack, 7 health, which is worthless. This is really bad. It's worse than Chillwind, right? Because the 7 health is not going to really help much. And that's it. Conduit Tethys, awkward. Very weird. Probably the worst champion, but it has its situational uses. Finally, Handheld Totem Tethys. You got the old sweep spell weakness Tethys. This is 5 attack, 6 health. But I didn't even talk about Conduit stats, by the way, but I just don't think they matter. 10, 5, 26, 47. Sorry, but I don't care. I don't care about these stats. Better stats on the other ones. Don't pick this. Just pick it in one of your niche cases and never again. Handheld Totem Tethys is sweep and then strike apply spell weakness, so she hits the whole floor and she applies spell weakness to them all. It is 5 attack all the way through. All she gains is health. 6, 8, 9. Tankiest of the Tethyses. Oh yeah, and also it's a 1, 2, 3 spell weakness. She's the tankiest of them. 9 health is enough for her to survive 2 sweeps, which is a lot, I guess. But she'll still die to almost everything that would threaten her. This is the Tethys that I think people have the most, not misconceptions, but I think is the most underrated by the average player. Because I've been there. This is a start that's very risky, let's say. I had a period of time where I thought that Tethys only had one good start, which was Frostbite. And then Conduit or Handheld was just a death sentence. You can survive this. You can do it. I know you can. But Handheld Totem is good. It's very good. This kills heavies. Like, this is your actual heavy killer. Chillwind Tethys is your boss killer. This is your heavy killer. If you hold over a good spell, Ancient Synergy, Helical Crystallis, Ice Storm with a +10, I don't know, something from another clan, you can make a choice, right? Whatever you want. You'll kill heavies with this very easily. Ancient Synergy is probably the best one. Helical Crystallis can do it too, but at like 2 spell weakness, you can punch through most heavies with this. You don't even have to go all the way. I think that this spell weakness Tethys has its biggest weakness on floor 1, where you are just kind of at the mercy of the game to give you a good starting damage spell, and then you have to draw it after playing your spell weakness. You mitigate this problem by playing your Tethys on the bottom floor, and then tanking for it down there, so you get 2 rounds to hopefully draw into a damaging spell, and sometimes your best damaging spell is Frozen Lance, and you just take a bunch of damage. However, you have to identify that that's the case, and you have to plan to fight the boss through by chipping away at him and accept the pyre damage that you're going to take, knowing that you'll get some good stuff out of Tethys later. It's an investment in the future of your run. When you get into the late game, spell weakness 2, spell weakness 3 is enough to kill things. I do not like, I've played it a few times, and I really do not like making your plan killing Seraph with spell weakness, because what I've found is typically, and we're going to get in, this is going to be like, basically, spell weakness Tethys kills heavies, and we're going to get into mixing the streams now. Usually, when you're offered spell weakness 3, you're better off picking Frostbite 10. If you have a held over spell that does damage at spell weakness 2, it's probably going to kill them the same as it would at spell weakness 3. So, can you kill Seraph with spell weakness 3? Yeah, kind of, but also not really. So, to kill Seraph, Seraph has 4,000 health. To kill Seraph with something like, I don't know, let's say Helical Crystallis, for example, or no, let's say Ancient Synergy. Say your Ancient Synergy is doing 90 damage. For ease of my own brain power, let's say your Ancient Synergy is doing a thousand or 100 damage. Sorry, 1,000 damage. Let's say you have it doing 34 times 3. We're just gonna average it out to 100 damage. To kill Seraph, you have to apply like 40 spell weakness, probably somewhere in the range of 36 to 40, which is hard. That means you have to have Tethys survive 12 rounds. That's not easy. Getting Tethys to survive 12 rounds is really difficult. Are you getting through 12 rounds of Seraph? The answer is you're not, but getting up to that level of spell weakness is, you also get to chip away at them with some spell weakness cards. Maybe you pick up like an Urchin Spines, or you pick like for 2, and then Tethys sweeps so she has everyone on the floor, so if Seraph is ever on her floor, you can average that out. It's probably going to start with 9, but then if you're chased, it's going to get cut down, whatever. I don't think you go Spell Weakness 3. Personally, I think if you're at Spell Weakness 2 and Tethys is killing your heavies, you have a better boss killing plan in mind already, and you're best off just to grab this 10 Frostbite. One other important thing to note, I have made this mistake. I went into a Seraph, the Temperant, the Sap Seraph fight with Spell Weakness 3 Tethys. 5 attack is less than the 6 Sap that Seraph puts on you at the start of the combat. You get bodied. If you're going against Sap Seraph and you have Spell Weakness 2, you have to pick one of the other ones. Even if it's Conduit, you need to have higher attack than 5. You have to. There's no choice. I personally believe that the most common win that I find is probably Chillwind 2 Handheld 1. Go for that sweep Spell Weakness, apply 20 to everyone. Your Tethys kills backline, your Tethys kills heavies with the Frostbite 20. Plus the 35, or I think it's 30. I'm not sure how much it is. It's like maybe 30. It's probably 30. Yeah, so it's a sweep of 30 damage plus 20 Frostbite and 1 spell weakness, which with a damage spell will usually kill an enemy before they get to your pyre. An important thing to note as well about Frostbite I should mention is that if an enemy goes up to your pyre with like 30 Frostbite on them, they are effectively, like your pyre's attack is effectively increased by 30, right? Because your pyre will hit them for its 25 or its 35 or whatever it's at, right? And then it will trigger the Frostbite, which is good. Good thing to note about Frostbite as well. But in conclusion with Tethys, she's just, every Stygian run that you start with Tethys, so Stygian as your main, you just play Keep Tethys Alive. Keep Tethys Alive, well no, when you have Frostbite you play Keep Tethys Alive. When you're playing Spell Weakness you play Let Tethys kill the heavies by applying Spell Weakness while we solve the other boss problem through other means. Maybe it's an Awoken Hollow, maybe it's a Gorge unit, maybe it's reforming a Dreg a million times, I don't know. Do whatever you're doing, right? But if you have something else to kill bosses that you're relying on, you can just go into Spell Weakness 2, kill the heavies with this, and win the game off of it. Spell Weakness is super powerful for that, because essentially, this Tethys will, if you can keep her alive and tank for her well enough, will wipe entire floors. She'll kill all the backline with the raw damage, and then your Spell Weakness plus a spell. It's a really easy package to put together, right? You just pick up a few good spells, probably take like 3 or 4 good spells that do damage. You want your spell to do somewhere in the range of like probably 40 to 60 damage is ideal, which is, Helical Crystallis, it is Excavation Eruption, it is, Excavation Eruption's more, I guess, but, costs a lot, work it out, right? But it's like Helical Crystallis, it's Ice Storm, which does 55 if you give it a plus 10, it's Ancient Synergy. Ice Tornado is one that I'm not mentioning, but it's because I don't like Ice Tornado. Even though it does 60 damage, it's 3 energy, which I think is too expensive. Crystallis is just better. And yeah, Spell Weakness will win you the game. Frostbite will win you the game. You just gotta make sure you have the proper support for it, which is not too hard to do. I think that there's a lot of really easy winning floors, just pure Stygian. Like, a very easy sample win is probably, like, Tethys at Spell Weakness 2, Chillwind 1, you have a Held Over -1 on your Frenzied Swarm, which is the Dazed 1 to all enemies on the floor card. That will, and then you just have in front of your Tethys a Siren of the Sea and a Guard of the Unnamed, which is Siren of the Sea is the +2/+2 incant, and Guard of the Unnamed is the +3 armor incant. And then you just have a Held Over kill spell. Probably Ice Storm is the easiest one to find. And so the enemy comes up to that floor, They get hit with the sweep, they get Frenzied Swarm, so they don't even get to attack. They go up to the next floor, and you hit them with a Ice Storm, and it kills them. Or maybe you take a little bit of damage to your Pyre in the late game because 55 damage split between two 190s, even when it's amplified to 33 per hit, and that damage goes up a little more, it's not enough. But you can just go into the, you'll be strong enough, right? You'll have the Pyre health to handle it, and it's good. Tethys is strong. I think she's the strongest champion in my opinion. I have heard people say they think she's the weakest champion, and you can be right. Sure, she's kind of weak, but she's also really strong. You just have to figure out how you protect her, and she wins you the game. I would rank Tethys higher than the other two. I think that she goes higher than Hornbreaker Prince. If you're keeping up on my tier list, it's Tethys, Hornbreaker Prince, and then Sentient in terms of power level. I think that Tethys is nuts. I think that Chillwind, like, getting this, or even just getting to this and killing Seraph with it is pretty easy, as long as you can keep her alive. Tethys good. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to drop me that like. Subscribe if you want to see more. I'll see you in the next one. Hope you have a good one. Later.